The ancient floorboards of Raven's Hollow Castle creaked beneath 17-year-old Mira Blackwood's bare feet as she crept through the shadowed corridors, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for freedom. The medicinal herbs she'd managed to steal were secured in a leather pouch at her waist, their earthy scent a small comfort against the overwhelming dread that permeated every stone of this cursed place. She'd made it this far, farther than any human had a right to expect in the domain of Lord Cassius Nightfall, the vampire whose very name was whispered in terror throughout the countryside. But Mira hadn't come here for glory or gold. She'd come for information, for the rare healing compounds that might save the dying children in the village orphanage, and most desperately of all, for any clue that might lead her to her missing sister. The corridor ahead split into two paths, and Mira paused, pressing herself against the cold stone wall as she tried to remember the layout she'd memorized from stolen architectural plans. Left led to the servant quarters, right to the Lord's private chambers. She needed to reach the library where ancient texts might contain references to other vampire holdings, other places where a 12-year-old girl with unusual abilities might have been taken. A sound made her freeze, the whisper of expensive fabric against stone, footsteps so light they might have belonged to a ghost. But Mira knew better. She'd heard the stories, knew that vampires moved with inhuman grace, that they could appear and disappear like smoke. Lost little thief? The voice came from directly behind her, cultured and smooth as aged wine, with an undertone that spoke of centuries of absolute authority. Mira spun around, her hand instinctively moving to the small knife at her belt, a pathetic weapon against a creature of legend, but the only protection she had. Lord Cassius Nightfall stood in the shadows as if he'd materialized from darkness itself. He was tall and lean, with the kind of aristocratic bearing that spoke of noble blood and ancient power. His hair was black as midnight, swept back from a face that belonged in a Renaissance painting, all sharp angles and classical beauty marred only by the predatory gleam in his silver eyes. He wore a black coat of exquisite cut, and despite the late hour, he looked as if he'd just stepped from a formal gathering rather than hunting an intruder through his own halls. "I'm not lost," Mira said, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. She'd expected to be terrified when this moment came, and she was. But beneath the fear was something stronger: desperation, purpose, love for the sister she would die to protect. "No?" Cassius stepped closer, and Mira caught the scent of winter air and something indefinably ancient. "Then perhaps you'd care to explain what brings a mortal child into my domain at this ungodly hour. Surely you know the stories about what happens to trespassers in Raven's Hollow Castle." "I know the stories," Mira replied, lifting her chin with a defiance that surprised them both. "I also know that sometimes the stories are all we have to guide us when the people we love are in danger." Something flickered across Cassius's expression, too quick to identify, but it made him pause in his approach. Danger? What danger could possibly drive a slip of a girl to risk her life in such a foolish manner? "My sister," Mira said simply. "She was taken 3 months ago. Stolen by slavers who sell children to your kind. I've searched everywhere, followed every lead, but the trail always goes cold. This was my last hope. Your last hope was to break into my castle and steal from me. My last hope was to find information. Maps, records, anything that might tell me which of your kind might have purchased a 12-year-old girl with unusual abilities." Mira's voice cracked slightly on the words, but she pressed on. "The herbs I took, they're for the children at St. Catherine's orphanage. Half of them are dying from fever and the local physicians have given up. I thought if I could save them, maybe God would help me save Lily too." Cassius was quiet for a long moment, his silver eyes studying her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed, as if he could see straight through to her soul. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer, though no less dangerous. "Lily, that's your sister's name?" "Yes. She's 12 years old with blonde hair and green eyes, and she's the kindest, bravest person I've ever known. She doesn't deserve whatever's happening to her." Tears threatened, but Mira blinked them back. She couldn't afford to show weakness, not now. "And these unusual abilities you mentioned?" Mira hesitated. Lily's gift was both blessing and curse, the thing that made her special, and the thing that had ultimately led to her capture. She can see things. When she touches objects, she can see their history, the people who owned them, the events they witnessed. It's not something she can control, and it frightens her sometimes. The change in Cassius was immediate and startling. His entire body went rigid, his eyes widening with something that looked almost like shock. She can see the past through objects? Yes. Why? Do you know something about her? Do you know where she is? Cassius seemed to struggle with himself as if fighting some internal battle. This ability, how long has she possessed it? Since she was very young. Our parents died when she was 7, and the trauma seemed to awaken something in her. She would touch their belongings and see memories of them, happy times before the sickness took them. At first we thought it was just her imagination, but the visions were too accurate, too detailed to be mere fantasy. Exactly. How did you... Because, Cassius said slowly, I have been searching for someone with precisely that ability for the past 300 years. The words hit Mira like a physical blow. What? Your sister, child. If what you say is true, if she truly possesses the gift of psychometry, the ability to read the history of objects through touch, then she may be the key to something I have sought for centuries. I don't understand. Cassius began to pace, his movements fluid and predatory. 3 centuries ago, my family was murdered. Not just killed, destroyed utterly, their very existence erased from history. Someone with great power and cunning orchestrated their deaths and then used dark magic to steal the memories of that night from my mind. I remember fragments, screams, the scent of blood, the feeling of helpless rage, but the crucial details are gone. Who killed them, why they were targeted, how the murderer managed to breach our defenses. All of it. Stolen. And you think Lily could help you remember? Not remember, recover. If she could touch objects from that night, weapons, jewelry, anything that witnessed the massacre, she might be able to see what really happened. She could give me the truth I've been denied for 3 centuries. Mira felt a chill that had nothing to do with the castle's stone walls. And in exchange for this information, you'd help me find her? More than that. Cassius stopped pacing and fixed her with that penetrating stare. I propose a bargain, Mira Blackwood. I will use every resource at my disposal to locate your sister. My network of contacts spans continents. My influence reaches into every corner of vampire society. I will find her and I will ensure her safe return to you. What do you want in return? 1 year of service. You will remain here in my castle as my assistant. You will help me prepare for the day when your sister can aid in my quest for justice. And when that day comes, you will convince her to use her gift to uncover the truth about my family's murder. Mira's mind raced. A year was a long time, but if it meant getting Lily back safely. And after? After she helps you, what happens to us? You'll be free to go, both of you. I'll provide you with enough gold to live comfortably for the rest of your mortal lives, and you'll have my protection should you ever need it. How do I know you'll keep your word? Cassius smiled, and for the first time, there was something almost human in the expression. Because, my dear child, I am many things. Predator, killer, creature of darkness. But I am not a liar. When I give my word, I keep it. The question is, are you brave enough to trust a monster? Mira looked into his silver eyes and saw something she hadn't expected. Loneliness. Pain. A grief so deep and old that it had become part of his very being. This wasn't just about revenge for him. This was about finding peace after 3 centuries of torment. I'm not leaving without my sister, she said firmly. That's not negotiable. Whatever deal we make, whatever I agree to do, it has to include getting Lily back safely. Understood? Do we have an agreement? Mira thought of Lily, alone and frightened in some stranger's house, probably being forced to use her gift for purposes she couldn't understand. She thought of the children at the orphanage, dying while she stood here negotiating with a vampire. She thought of the impossible odds she faced trying to find her sister on her own. We have an agreement, she said. But I have conditions. Cassius raised an eyebrow. You're hardly in a position to make demands. Aren't I? You need Lily's cooperation, not just her presence. And she won't cooperate if she thinks I'm in danger or being mistreated. So my conditions are simple. I want your word that you won't harm me during this year of service, that you'll treat me with basic human dignity, and that when we find Lily, you'll give me time to explain the situation to her before asking for her help. Anything else? The herbs I took. I want to be allowed to return them to the orphanage. Those children need them. You would risk angering me for the sake of strangers? I would risk anything for the sake of innocent children. That's what separates us, Lord Nightfall. You see people as tools to be used. I see them as lives worth saving. For a moment, Cassius looked almost impressed. Very well. Your conditions are acceptable. The herbs will be returned to the orphanage, along with additional medical supplies from my own stores. Consider it a gesture of good faith. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, child. You have no idea what you've just agreed to. As Cassius led her deeper into the castle, Mira couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a deal with the devil himself. But if it meant saving Lily, she would have bargained with Satan himself. What she didn't know was that Cassius was thinking much the same thing, that this fierce, brave girl who would risk everything for her sister might just be the salvation he'd been searching for, even if he didn't yet understand what form that salvation might take. The room Cassius assigned to Mira was far grander than anything she'd ever experienced. A spacious chamber with tall windows, elegant furniture, and a fireplace that cast dancing shadows on tapestried walls. It was beautiful, luxurious, and felt exactly like the gilded cage it was meant to be. Your quarters, Cassius said, gesturing around the room with casual elegance. You'll find clothing in the wardrobe, books on the shelves, and anything else you might need for your comfort. Meals will be brought to you 3 times daily, unless you prefer to dine in the Great Hall. With you? When my schedule permits, yes. I find that understanding one's allies is crucial to any successful partnership. Is that what we are? Allies? Cassius considered the question seriously. We are 2 individuals with complementary goals. You want your sister returned safely. I want the truth about my family's murder. Our arrangement serves both purposes. And after we find Lily, after she helps you uncover this truth, what guarantee do I have that you won't simply keep us here forever? None, save my word. But consider this, Mira. If I intended to betray you, why would I go to the trouble of this elaborate charade? I could simply compel you to serve me, use my vampiric abilities to bend your will to mine. Can you do that? Control minds? To some extent, yes. But such control is crude, temporary. It creates servants, not allies, and what I need from you requires genuine cooperation. Cassius moved to the window, staring out at the moonlit grounds. Besides, I find that willing service is far more effective than forced compliance. You speak as if you have experience with both. 3 centuries of existence tends to provide one with a broad range of experiences. His voice carried a note of something that might have been regret, not all of them pleasant to remember. Mira studied his profile, noting the way shadows seemed to gather around him like old friends. What were you like before your family was killed? Different. The word was spoken so quietly she almost missed it. I was younger, in all the ways that matter. I believed in justice, in the possibility of redemption, in the idea that good could triumph over evil. The massacre changed that. It taught me that the only reliable truth in this world is power, and the only justice is what we take for ourselves. That's a very lonely way to live. Loneliness is a small price to pay for survival. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been dying slowly for 300 years, just too stubborn to lie down. Cassius turned from the window, his silver eyes flashing with something dangerous. You forget yourself, child. I am not some tragic figure in need of redemption. I am a predator, a killer, a creature that exists outside the moral boundaries that govern your kind. And yet you made a deal with me instead of simply taking what you wanted. You're providing medical supplies to dying children you've never met. You're going to considerable trouble to reunite 2 sisters who mean nothing to you. Mira stepped closer, unafraid despite the warning in his voice. Maybe you're not as far beyond redemption as you think. Or maybe I'm simply more patient than most monsters. Perhaps I find the long game more satisfying than immediate gratification. Maybe. Or maybe you remember what it was like to love someone enough to move heaven and earth to protect them. The silence that followed was charged with tension, as if the very air between them had become electrified. Finally, Cassius spoke, his voice carefully controlled. Get some rest, Mira. Tomorrow we begin the search for your sister in earnest. You'll need your strength for what's to come. After he left, Mira sank into the chair by the fireplace and tried to process everything that had happened. 6 hours ago, she'd been a desperate thief breaking into a vampire's castle. Now she was, what? A guest? A prisoner? An ally in a quest for 300-year-old justice? She thought about Lily, wondering where her sister was at this very moment, whether she was safe, Whether she was frightened? The not knowing was the worst part. The endless possibilities that ranged from merely unpleasant to utterly horrific. But now, for the first time in 3 months, Mira had hope. Cassius Nightfall was dangerous, possibly evil, certainly not someone she should trust. But he was also powerful, connected, and motivated to find Lily for his own purposes. If anyone could locate a missing child in the vast network of vampire society, it would be him. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, expecting a servant with food or fresh linens. Instead, a young woman entered, or at least, someone who appeared young. She had the pale skin and otherworldly beauty that marked her as vampire, but there was something warm in her dark eyes that seemed almost human. "Miss Blackwood? I'm Elena Rosehart, Lord Cassius's assistant, I suppose you could say. He asked me to check on you, ensure you have everything you need." "Thank you. I'm fine, just trying to understand what I've gotten myself into." Elna smiled, and the expression transformed her entire face. A common feeling among those who find themselves in Lord Cassius's orbit. He has a way of turning people's lives upside down, though not always for the worse. "You sound like you speak from experience." "I do. He found me nearly 50 years ago, dying in a London alley after my human family cast me out for becoming what I am. He gave me purpose, protection, a place where I belonged. I've served him faithfully ever since. And you're happy here? Happiness is perhaps too strong a word, but I'm content, and I'm useful, and I'm alive, or the vampire equivalent thereof. That's more than I had before." Mira studied the other woman's face, looking for signs of deception or coercion. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Is he trustworthy? Will he really help me find my sister, or is this all some elaborate game?" Elena was quiet for a moment, clearly considering her answer carefully. "Lord Cassius is many things, ruthless, calculating, sometimes cruel. But he is not a liar, and he does not break his word once given. If he has promised to help you find your sister, he will move heaven and earth to do so, even if it costs him considerably. Especially then, he understands what it means to lose family. It's not something he would wish on anyone, even a human. You know about what happened to his family? Fragments. He doesn't speak of it often, but sometimes when he thinks no one is watching, I see the pain in his eyes. 3 centuries of grief and rage eating away at him like acid. Finding the truth about their deaths isn't just about revenge for him. It's about finding peace. And he thinks my sister can give him that peace. He hopes she can. But Mira, may I call you Mira? You should know that hope is a dangerous thing for someone like him. He's built his entire existence around the certainty of his loss, the absoluteness of his pain. If your sister can't help him, if the truth remains hidden, I'm not sure what that would do to him. Are you warning me? I'm asking you to be careful, not just for your own sake, but for his. He's more fragile than he appears, and disappointment could shatter him completely." After Elena left, Mira lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and thinking about the strange situation she'd found herself in. She'd come here expecting to face a monster, and instead found a man consumed by grief and longing. She'd expected to be treated as a prisoner and instead found herself housed like an honored guest. Most confusing of all, she'd expected to hate and fear Cassius Nightfall. Instead, she found herself intrigued. There was something about him, something beneath the predatory grace and aristocratic bearing that called to her, a loneliness that matched her own, a determination that mirrored her fierce love for Lily. Perhaps Elena was right. Perhaps hope was a dangerous thing for someone like Cassius. But as Mira finally drifted off to sleep, she found herself hoping anyway, hoping that they would find Lily, hoping that her sister could help heal 3 centuries of pain, and hoping that somewhere in this strange arrangement, they might all find something they hadn't even known they were looking for. The next morning brought Mira's first real glimpse of how Cassius intended to conduct their search. She found him in what he called his study, a vast room lined with books, maps, and correspondence that spoke of a network spanning continents and centuries. "Good morning," he said without looking up from the letter he was writing. "I trust you slept well?" "Well enough. What's all this?" "The beginning of our investigation. I've sent word to my contacts throughout Europe and beyond, describing your sister and asking for any information about recent acquisitions of human children with unusual abilities." He gestured to a stack of sealed letters. These will go out today, via my fastest messengers. How many contacts do you have? Enough. The vampire community is smaller and more interconnected than most humans realize. We tend to know each other's business, particularly when it comes to unusual acquisitions. Mira moved closer to examine a map that covered most of one wall, marked with pins and notations in multiple languages. This is your network? Part of it. The red pins mark vampire holdings where children might be kept. The blue pins are neutral territories where information might be gathered. The black pins, he paused. The black pins mark places where I have enemies. There are a lot of black pins. 3 centuries of existence tends to accumulate adversaries. What did you do to make so many enemies? Cassius finally looked up from his correspondence, his silver eyes unreadable. I survived when others didn't. I thrived when others failed. I refused to forget when others chose to move on. In vampire society, these things are often seen as character flaws. Or maybe you just have a talent for making people angry. That too. He almost smiled. But anger can be useful, Mira. Angry people make mistakes, and mistakes create opportunities. Is that what you're counting on? That whoever took Lily will make a mistake? Among other things. But first, we need to narrow down the possibilities. Tell me everything you know about the night she was taken. Every detail, no matter how small. Mira settled into a chair across from his desk and forced herself to relive that terrible night. It was 3 months ago, during the Harvest Festival. Lily and I were staying at the inn in Millbrook. We'd been traveling from village to village, doing odd jobs and trying to earn enough money to reach London. Why London? We'd heard there were opportunities there, people who might value Lily's gift without exploiting it. We thought if we could find the right patron, someone scholarly or religious, they might help us understand her abilities better. A naive hope, but an understandable one. Continue. The inn was crowded that night, full of travelers and merchants. Lily was tired, so she went to bed early while I stayed in the common room, listening to the conversations, trying to pick up information about the road ahead. Mira's voice grew tight with remembered fear. I should have stayed with her. I should have known something was wrong when it got so quiet upstairs. What happened? By the time I realized she was gone, they'd had at least an hour's head start. The innkeeper said he'd seen men in dark clothes leaving through the back entrance, but he hadn't thought anything of it at the time. Did anyone see their faces? Notice any distinguishing features? One of the stable boys said he saw them loading something into a covered wagon. He thought it was cargo, but Mira swallowed hard. But the size was about right for a child. And the direction they traveled? North, toward the border. I followed for days, asking questions in every village, but the trail went cold once they reached the main roads. Cassius made notes as she spoke, his handwriting elegant and precise. You mentioned that the men who took her knew about her abilities. How can you be certain? Because of what they left behind. Mira reached into her bag and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. This was on her pillow, like a calling card. She unwrapped the object to reveal an ornate silver pendant, its surface engraved with symbols that seemed to shift and dance in the lamplight. Cassius went very still when he saw it, his face draining of what little color it possessed. Where did you get this? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I told you it was left on Lily's pillow. Why? Do you recognize it? Cassius reached for the pendant with trembling fingers, then stopped himself. May I? Mira nodded, watching as he carefully lifted the pendant from her palm. The moment his skin made contact with the silver, he gasped, his eyes rolling back as if he were experiencing some kind of vision. Cassius? What's wrong? He set the pendant down quickly, his hands shaking. This belonged to my family. It was my sister's, given to her on her 16th birthday. I watched her die wearing this pendant. That's impossible. This was left 3 months ago, and you said your family died 3 centuries ago. I know what I saw. Cassius's voice was hollow, haunted. This is Lydia's pendant. I would know it anywhere. But how could it have survived? How could it have ended up with the people who took Lily? I don't know. But Mira, this changes everything. Whoever took your sister isn't just some random slaver looking to profit from her abilities. They know about my family, about what happened that night. They may even be connected to the people who killed them. What does that mean for Lily? It means she's in more danger than we thought, and it means that finding her isn't just about reuniting you with your sister anymore. It's about uncovering a conspiracy that's been 3 centuries in the making. Mira felt the blood drain from her face. You think they took her specifically to get to you? I think they took her because they know what she can do and they know that I've been searching for someone with her abilities. This pendant, it's a message, a challenge. What kind of challenge? Cassius stood and began pacing, his movements sharp with agitation. They're telling me they have something I need, something I've been searching for. They're also telling me they know my history, my pain, my desperate desire for answers. So what do? We spring their trap. What? Think about it, Mira. They want me to come looking for your sister. They want me to find them. The question is why. Maybe they want to finish what they started 3 centuries ago. Perhaps. Or maybe they want something else entirely. Either way, we're going to give them what they want. You're talking about walking into an obvious trap. I'm talking about turning the tables on people who think they're cleverer than they are. Cassius stopped pacing and fixed her with that intense stare. But I won't lie to you, Mira. This is going to be dangerous. More dangerous than I initially anticipated. If you want to back out of our agreement, I'll understand. I'm not backing out. The words came without hesitation. Lily is my sister. I don't care how dangerous it is or who's behind it. I'm not leaving without her. Even if it means facing the people who murdered my family. Even if it means walking into a trap that could get us both killed. Even then. Cassius studied her face for a long moment, and something in his expression shifted. You're either very brave or very foolish. Probably both, but it doesn't matter. Lily is all the family I have left, and I won't abandon her. No, Cassius said quietly. I don't suppose you would. Very well then. We proceed as planned, but with additional precautions. If we're walking into a trap, we'll make sure we're not walking in blind. What do you need me to do? For now, help me research. I need to understand the connection between this pendant and your sister's abduction. There are records here, journals and documents that might shed light on what we're facing. And after that, we prepare for war. The next several days passed in a blur of research and preparation. Mira found herself immersed in a world she'd never imagined. Ancient vampire histories, genealogical charts that traced bloodlines back millennia, and correspondence that revealed the complex web of alliances and enmities that governed supernatural society. Cassius proved to be a patient teacher, explaining the intricacies of vampire politics and the various factions that might have reason to target him. But it was when they delved into his family's history that Mira began to understand the true scope of what they were facing. The Nightfall family was one of the oldest vampire bloodlines in Europe. Cassius explained as they pored over a leather-bound genealogy. We traced our lineage back to the first vampires, the original children of darkness. That heritage came with both power and responsibility. What kind of responsibility? We were guardians, protectors of the ancient laws that governed our kind. My father served as a judge in vampire courts, settling disputes, and ensuring that our secrets remained hidden from human society. My mother was a scholar, keeper of the old knowledge. My sister, what about your sister? Lydia was special, even among our kind. She had the ability to see truth, to know when someone was lying or hiding something important. It made her invaluable as a mediator, but it also made her dangerous to those who preferred to keep their secrets buried. And you think that's why your family was killed? Because they knew something they shouldn't have? I'm certain of it. But the question is what? What secret was so dangerous that it required the complete destruction of one of the most powerful vampire families in existence? Mira studied the family portrait that hung above the fireplace, a formal painting that showed a younger Cassius with his parents and sister. They looked happy, united, completely unaware of the tragedy that awaited them. Tell me about the night they died, she said gently. Cassius was quiet for so long that she thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was distant as if he were recounting someone else's memories. It was winter, 1592. We were hosting a gathering of vampire nobility, a formal dinner to celebrate the winter solstice. The castle was full of guests, all of them people we trusted, people we'd known for decades or even centuries. What do you remember? Fragments. The dinner was going well. Everyone seemed relaxed and happy. Lydia was wearing her pendant, the one you found, and she looked beautiful in her green silk gown. My parents were discussing politics with Lord Blackwood, and I was talking to a young woman I'd been courting, making plans for the spring. And then nothing. The next thing I remember is waking up 3 days later in the ruins of my home, surrounded by ash and blood, and the bodies of everyone I'd ever loved. The memories of those 3 days were simply gone, stolen as completely as if they'd never existed. But you survived. Barely. And only because whoever orchestrated the massacre wanted me to survive. They wanted me to live with the knowledge that I'd failed to protect my family, that I was powerless to prevent their deaths or even to remember how it happened. That's incredibly cruel. Cruelty was the point. They didn't just want my family dead, they wanted me broken. And for a very long time they succeeded. Mira reached across the table and touched his hand, surprised by the gesture even as she made it. But you're not broken now, aren't I? Cassius looked down at their joined hands, his expression unreadable. I've spent 3 centuries consumed by grief and rage, building walls around my heart so high that nothing could penetrate them. I've become exactly the kind of monster they wanted me to be. No, you haven't. A monster wouldn't have made a deal with me to save my sister. A monster wouldn't be providing medical supplies to dying children. A monster wouldn't be capable of the kindness you've shown me. Kindness born of necessity. I need your cooperation to find Lily. Is it? Because it seems to me like you're going to considerable trouble for someone you supposedly see as nothing more than a tool. Cassius pulled his hand away, but not before Mira felt the slight tremor in his fingers. Don't mistake pragmatism for sentiment, Mira. I am what I am. And what you are is someone who's forgotten how to let people care about him. But that doesn't mean you're incapable of caring about others. You think you understand me after a few days of conversation? I think I understand what it's like to lose everyone you love and build walls to protect yourself from ever feeling that pain again. I think I understand what it's like to be so focused on survival that you forget what it means to truly live. And what would you know about survival? You're 17 years old. I'm 17 years old and I've been taking care of myself and my sister since I was 12. I've worked jobs that would break grown men, gone hungry so Lily could eat, and fought off predators both human and otherwise who saw 2 orphaned girls as easy prey. Don't tell me I don't understand survival. The fire in her voice seemed to surprise him. I apologize. That was unfair. Yes, it was. But I understand why you said it. It's easier to dismiss me as a naive child than to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, I see something in you that you've forgotten exists. And what is it you think you see? Someone who's tired of being alone. Someone who wants to believe that there's more to existence than revenge and regret. Someone who's capable of love but afraid to risk it. You're wrong. Am I? Then why haven't you simply compelled me to cooperate? Why bother with conversation and kindness when you could just force me to do what you want? Because forced cooperation is unreliable. Or because you're lonely and you've forgotten what it's like to have someone choose to stay with you instead of being forced to. The silence that followed was charged with tension, as if the very air between them had become electrified. Finally, Cassius stood and moved to the window, his back rigid with control. We should focus on finding your sister, he said, his voice carefully neutral. Personal speculation serves no purpose, doesn't it? Because it seems to me that understanding each other is crucial to this partnership. If we're going to face whatever's waiting for us, we need to trust each other. Trust is a luxury I can't afford. Trust is a necessity you can't avoid. Not if you want this to work. Cassius turned from the window, his silver eyes blazing with something that might have been anger or might have been fear. You want to know why I can't trust? Because the last time I trusted people, everyone I loved died. Because the last time I let my guard down, I lost everything that mattered to me. Because trust is what got my family killed. And isolation is what's been killing you ever since. Better to die slowly than to risk losing everything again. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you haven't been living at all. You've been existing, going through the motions, but not really living. And what would you have me do? Open my heart to every person who crosses my path? Risk everything for the possibility of connection? I'd have you consider the possibility that some risks are worth taking, that some people are worth trusting, that maybe, just maybe, the walls you've built to protect yourself have become a prison. And if you're wrong, if trusting you leads to more loss, more pain, then at least you'll have tried. At least you'll have chosen to live instead of just survive. Cassius stared at her for a long moment, his expression cycling through emotions too complex to name. Finally he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. You terrify me, Mira Blackwood. Good. Fear means you're still capable of feeling something. It means you're still alive in all the ways that matter. And if that life leads to destruction, then we'll face that destruction together. But Cassius, what if it leads to something beautiful instead? What if taking this risk, trusting each other, Gives us both something we never thought we could have again. What could it possibly give us? Hope, purpose, the knowledge that we're not alone in this world. Mira stood and moved closer to him, close enough to see the pain and longing in his ancient eyes. The chance to save not just Lily but each other. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I don't know how to trust, how to hope, how to be anything other than what I've become. Then we'll figure it out together. One day at a time, one choice at a time. And if I disappoint you, if I prove to be exactly the monster you think I'm not, then I'll deal with that when it happens. But Cassius, I don't think you're a monster. I think you're a man who's been hurt so badly that he's forgotten how to heal. And maybe, if we're very lucky, we can help each other remember. The kiss that followed was unexpected, gentle, and filled with 3 centuries of longing. When they broke apart, Cassius rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed as if he were afraid to open them and find that this moment was just another dream. This is madness, he whispered. Yes, Mira agreed, but it's the best kind of madness. If we do this, if we truly become partners in more than just name, there's no going back. You'll be bound to me in ways that transcend any mere agreement, and you'll be bound to me. Are you ready for that? No, but I'm willing to try. Then that's enough. For now, that's enough. As they stood together in the lamplight, Mira felt something shift between them, a connection that went deeper than their shared quest, stronger than their mutual need. Whatever lay ahead, whatever dangers they would face in finding Lily, they would face them together. And for the first time in 3 centuries, Cassius Nightfall allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, love was stronger than loss after all. The first real lead came a week later, in the form of a letter bearing the seal of Lord Blackwood, the same vampire who had been present at the Nightfall family dinner 3 centuries ago. Cassius read the message twice before handing it to Mira, his expression grim. What does it say? She asked, noting the tension in his shoulders. Blackwood has information about a recent acquisition by Lord Ravencrest, a vampire who collects unusual humans. Apparently, he's recently come into possession of a young girl with psychometric abilities. That has to be Lily, most likely. But there's more. Ravencrest's estate is located in the Scottish Highlands, in a castle that was once a Nightfall holding. Your family's property? My sister's dowry. It was to be her home after her marriage to Lord Ravencrest's son. Cassius's voice was tight with old pain. A marriage that never took place because she died before the ceremony could be performed. This can't be a coincidence. No, it's not. Someone is playing a very elaborate game, using both your sister and my family's history as pieces on their board. What do? We go to Scotland. We retrieve your sister. And we finally get the answers I've been seeking for 3 centuries. Just like that? Walk into an obvious trap and hope for the best? Not quite. I have resources that Lord Ravencrest doesn't know about, allies who owe me favors, information networks that span continents. We won't be walking in blind, but we will be walking into danger. Yes, considerable danger. Mira, I need you to understand what we're facing. Lord Ravencrest is old, powerful, and utterly without conscience. If he has your sister, he won't give her up easily. And if he's connected to my family's murder, he'll try to finish what he started. Almost certainly. Are you prepared for that? Are you ready to face someone who might be willing to kill us both to protect his secrets? Mira thought of Lily, alone and frightened in a stranger's castle, probably being forced to use her gift for purposes she couldn't understand. I'm ready for anything if it means getting my sister back. Even if it means I might not survive the encounter? Even if helping me get my answers puts you both at greater risk? Cassius, 3 months ago I was willing to break into a vampire's castle and steal from him to save dying children. Do you really think I'm going to back down now when my sister's life is at stake? No, he said, with something that might have been admiration. I don't suppose you would. Besides, you're not getting rid of me that easily. We're partners now, remember, in all things. Partners, he repeated as if testing the word. I'm not sure I remember how to be someone's partner. Then it's a good thing I'm a patient teacher. The journey to Scotland took 3 days by carriage, traveling through countryside that grew increasingly wild and desolate as they moved north. Cassius had arranged for them to travel during daylight hours. using a specially modified carriage with blackened windows that allowed him to move about during the day without being burned by sunlight. "Tell me about Lord Ravencrest," Mira said as they rolled through the Scottish borderlands. "What kind of man are we dealing with?" "The worst kind. He's old, nearly as old as I am. But unlike me, he's never learned to value anything beyond his own pleasure and power. He collects things: art, books, weapons, people. To him, your sister is just another acquisition for his collection. And his connection to your family? His son, Marcus, was betrothed to my sister Lydia. It was a political alliance, meant to strengthen ties between our families. Marcus seemed genuinely fond of Lydia, and she was learning to care for him. What happened to Marcus? He died the same night as my family, found in the ruins of the castle with his throat torn out. So Ravencrest lost his son that night too." "Yes, which makes his current actions all the more puzzling. If he's seeking revenge for Marcus's death, why wait 3 centuries? And why involve your sister? Maybe he's not seeking revenge. Maybe he's seeking something else entirely. Such as, I don't know. But Cassius, what if the people who killed your family weren't trying to destroy you? What if they were trying to get something from you? And when that failed, they decided to try a different approach. What could they possibly want from me that would be worth 3 centuries of planning? I don't know. But your sister's pendant showing up with Lily's kidnappers suggests that someone has been keeping very close track of your family's possessions. Maybe there's something among those possessions that's more valuable than you realize." Cassius was quiet for a long moment, his silver eyes distant with thought. "There were always rumors about my family's collection. Ancient artifacts, books of forbidden knowledge, items of power that had been accumulated over millennia. What kind of items? The kind that could reshape the balance of power in supernatural society. The kind that could give someone control over other vampires or allow them to walk in daylight or—" He paused, his expression growing troubled. "Or what? Or allow them to steal memories, to manipulate the past itself. You think someone used one of your family's artifacts to erase your memories of that night? It's possible. And if they did, if they have access to that kind of power, then we're walking into something far more dangerous than I initially thought. Then we'll be careful. We'll be smart. And we'll make sure that whatever they're planning, they don't succeed." "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. Not easy, but simple. We find Lily, we get the truth about your family, and we stop the people responsible from hurting anyone else. And if we can't, if they're too powerful, too well prepared, then we'll improvise, we'll adapt, we'll find another way." Mira reached across the carriage and took his hand. "But we won't give up. We won't let them win. You have remarkable faith in our chances. I have remarkable faith in us, in what we can accomplish together. Even if together isn't enough, then at least we'll have tried. At least we'll have fought for something that mattered." Cassius lifted their joined hands and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "I love your optimism even if I don't share it. You will. Once we succeed, once we save Lily and get your answers, you'll remember what it feels like to hope for the future instead of just dreading it. And if we don't succeed, then we'll face whatever comes next together. But Cassius, I really don't think that's going to be necessary." "Why not?" "Because we have something they don't expect." "What's that?" "Love. They're counting on you being the same broken, isolated creature you've been for 3 centuries. They're not prepared for you to have someone fighting beside you, someone who cares about you enough to risk everything. Love is a weakness, as much as a strength. No, it's not. Love is what gives us the courage to face impossible odds. Love is what makes us stronger than we ever thought we could be. Love is what's going to help us win." "You sound very certain." "I am certain, because I've seen what you're capable of when you have something to fight for. And now you have 2 things to fight for: the truth about your family and the future we're building together." "The future we're building together," Cassius repeated, as if the words were foreign to him. "I like the sound of that." "Good, because I plan on spending a very long time building that future with you. Even if I'm a vampire? Even if our time together is limited by your mortal lifespan? Even then, though I should probably mention that I've been doing some research of my own." "What kind of research?" "The kind that suggests there might be ways to extend human life, to bridge the gap between mortal and immortal. Elena mentioned some possibilities, and there are references in your family's books. Mira, those processes are dangerous, unpredictable. The failure rate is something we can worry about later. Right now, let's focus on the immediate future. Let's focus on saving Lily and getting your answers. And after that? After that, we'll have all the time in the world to figure out the rest. As their carriage rolled through the Scottish Highlands toward an uncertain fate, Mira found herself thinking about the strange turns her life had taken. A month ago, she'd been a desperate thief breaking into a vampire's castle. Now she was, what? A partner? An ally? Something more? Whatever she was, whatever they were building together, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't leaving without her sister, and she wasn't leaving without the man who had somehow, against all odds, taught her heart to hope again. The rest would have to take care of itself. Ravencrest Castle rose from the Scottish moors like a dark prophecy made stone, its towers piercing the gray sky like accusing fingers. As their carriage approached the ancient fortress, Mira felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Highland wind. "It's exactly as I remember it," Cassius said quietly, his silver eyes fixed on the imposing structure. Lydia was so excited about living here after her marriage. She spent hours planning how she would redecorate the chambers, what gardens she would plant. She never got the chance. No, she never got the chance to do any of the things she dreamed about. Mira squeezed his hand, offering what comfort she could. "We're going to find out who took that chance away from her. We're going to get justice for your family. And we're going to save your sister." "Yes, we are." The carriage rolled to a stop in the castle's courtyard, and Mira was struck by the oppressive silence that seemed to hang over the place like a shroud. No birds sang. No wind stirred the ancient banners that hung from the battlements. It was as if the very air were holding its breath. "Lord Cassius Nightfall," a voice called from the castle's main entrance. How unexpected. The man who emerged was tall and lean, with the pale skin and otherworldly beauty that marked him as vampire. His hair was silver white, his eyes the color of winter ice, and he moved with the fluid grace of a predator. This had to be Lord Ravencrest. "Ravencrest," Cassius replied, his voice carefully neutral as he stepped down from the carriage. "Thank you for agreeing to see me. Did I have a choice? Your message was quite insistent." Ravencrest's gaze moved to Mira as she joined Cassius in the courtyard. "And you've brought a guest. How charming. This is Miss Mira Blackwood. She has business with you as well." "Does she? How intriguing." Ravencrest's smile was sharp as a blade. "Please come inside. We have much to discuss." The castle's interior was as imposing as its exterior, all dark stone and ancient tapestries with shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. Ravencrest led them through corridors lined with portraits of long-dead nobles, their painted eyes seeming to follow their progress with silent judgment. "I trust your journey was comfortable?" Ravencrest asked as they walked, his tone conversational despite the tension crackling in the air. "Comfortable enough," Cassius replied, "though I confess I'm eager to conclude our business and return home." "Ah, yes, your business. Something about a missing child, if I recall correctly from your correspondence." "My sister," Mira said, speaking for the first time since their arrival. "Her name is Lily Blackwood. She's 12 years old with blonde hair and green eyes. I have reason to believe she's here." "Do you? How fascinating." Ravencrest paused before a particular portrait, a young woman with dark hair and knowing eyes wearing a familiar silver pendant. "Tell me, Miss Blackwood, what makes you think I would have any interest in acquiring human children?" "Because she has a gift. She can see the past through objects, read their history with a touch. That's exactly the kind of ability that would interest someone like you." "Someone like me? And what kind of person do you think I am?" "The kind who collects things. The kind who values power over compassion. The kind who would see a frightened child as nothing more than a useful tool." Ravencrest's laugh was like breaking glass. "How delightfully direct." "Yes, Miss Blackwood, I am exactly that kind of person. But tell me, what makes you think I would simply hand over such a valuable acquisition to a pair of uninvited guests?" "Because," Cassius said, his voice carrying a note of warning, "you know what I'm capable of when properly motivated. And because you have something else I want even more than the girl." "Do I? How intriguing. What could I possibly possess that would interest the great Cassius Nightfall?" "Answers. About the night my family died. About who orchestrated their murder and why." "Ah." Ravencrest's expression shifted, becoming almost sympathetic. "Still chasing ghosts after all these years?" Still convinced that someone else was responsible for that tragic night? I know someone else was responsible. The question is whether you were involved or merely a convenient pawn. Such accusations. And here I thought this was going to be a pleasant social call. They had reached a set of ornate double doors, which Ravencrest opened with a flourish. Beyond lay a vast library, its shelves stretching from floor to ceiling and filled with books that looked older than civilization itself. "Please, make yourselves comfortable," Ravencrest said, gesturing to chairs arranged around a massive fireplace. "I find that difficult conversations are best conducted in civilized surroundings." As they settled into the chairs, Mira caught sight of movement in the shadows between the bookshelves. Guards, she realized, vampires positioned to prevent any attempt at escape. They were well and truly trapped. "Now then," Ravencrest said, settling into his own chair with the air of a man completely in control of the situation. "Let's discuss why you're really here." "I told you why we're here," Mira said. "We want my sister back." "Yes, the child with the remarkable gift. She is here, by the way. Safe, comfortable, and proving quite useful in my research." "What kind of research?" Cassius asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected the answer. "The kind that requires someone who can read the history of objects. You see, I've recently come into possession of some very interesting artifacts. Items that once belonged to the Nightfall family. Items that hold secrets I've been trying to unlock for quite some time. You have my family's possessions? Some of them. The most important ones, certainly. Would you like to see them?" Without waiting for an answer, Ravencrest rose and moved to a display case near the windows. Inside, Mira could see various objects, jewelry, weapons, books, all bearing the distinctive craftsmanship that marked them as belonging to vampire nobility. "This collection has been 3 centuries in the making," Ravencrest said, running his fingers along the glass. "Piece by piece, I've acquired items that survived the fire that destroyed your family's castle. Some were sold by scavengers, others found their way into private collections, and a few were kept by those who participated in that night's events. You were there," Cassius said, his voice deadly quiet. "You were there the night they died." "Of course I was there. I was a guest at your family's dinner, remember? A grieving father who had just lost his son to whatever madness consumed your castle that night. Marcus wasn't killed by madness. He was murdered, just like the rest of my family." "Was he? How can you be so certain when you don't even remember what happened?" "Because I know my family. I know they would never have harmed an innocent guest." "Innocent?" Ravencrest's laugh was bitter. "Oh, my dear Cassius, you really don't remember anything, do you? You have no idea what your precious family was involved in, what secrets they were keeping, what they were planning to do. Then tell me, if you know the truth, tell me what happened that night." "The truth is complicated. The truth is that your family wasn't the noble, honorable clan you remember them as. They were conspirators, rebels who were planning to overthrow the established order of vampire society." "That's impossible." "Is it? Your father was gathering allies, building a network of vampires who shared his vision of a new world order. Your mother was researching forbidden magic, seeking ways to enhance vampire abilities beyond anything previously imagined. And your sister, what about my sister? Your sister was the key to it all. Her ability to see truth, to know when someone was lying. They were planning to use her gift to expose the secrets of every vampire lord in Europe. They were going to tear down the entire power structure and rebuild it according to their own vision. Even if that were true, it wouldn't justify murder, wouldn't it? When that vision included the complete subjugation of humanity, when their plans would have led to a war that would have exposed our kind to the world and destroyed everything we've built over millennia." Mira felt a chill run down her spine. "You're saying his family were the villains?" "I'm saying his family were idealists who didn't understand the consequences of their actions. They thought they could reshape the world without considering the cost in lives, both vampire and human." "And you stopped them," Cassius said, his voice hollow with realization. "We stopped them. A coalition of vampire lords who understood that sometimes terrible choices must be made to prevent even greater tragedies. We? Lord Blackwood, Lady Ashford, Duke Montrose, and myself. We gathered that night not as guests but as executioners. We did what had to be done to protect our people and yours. You murdered my family. We prevented a war that would have destroyed both our species. And we made sure that the knowledge they had gathered, the artifacts they had collected, the plans they had made, All of it was contained, controlled, kept from falling into the wrong hands. By stealing my memories of that night. By ensuring that you couldn't continue their work. You were young, impressionable, completely devoted to your family. If you had retained your memories of their true plans, you would have tried to complete what they started. So you condemned me to 3 centuries of ignorance and grief. We gave you 3 centuries of life. Do you have any idea how close we came to killing you that night? How many of us argued that you were too dangerous to leave alive? Then why didn't you? Because I convinced them that a broken, memory-wiped Cassius Nightfall was more useful than a dead one. You've spent 3 centuries serving as a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens to those who challenge the established order. The silence that followed was deafening. Mira watched Cassius process this revelation, saw the way his entire worldview crumbled and reformed in the space of a few heartbeats. "You're lying," he said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. "Am I? Then why don't we ask someone who can see the truth for herself?" Ravencrest moved to a bell pull and gave it a sharp tug. "I think it's time you met your sister, Miss Blackwood." The doors to the library opened, and Mira's heart nearly stopped. A small figure entered, flanked by 2 vampire guards. A girl with blonde hair and green eyes, wearing a simple white dress that made her look even younger than her 12 years. "Lily!" Mira started to rise, but Cassius caught her arm, holding her back. "Mira?" Lily's voice was small, confused. "What are you doing here? How did you find me?" "I've been looking for you everywhere, sweetheart. Are you all right? Have they hurt you?" "No. They've been kind to me. Lord Ravencrest has been teaching me about my gift, helping me understand what I can do. What you can do," Ravencrest said with obvious pride, "is remarkable. Show them, child. Show them what you've learned about Lord Cassius's family." Lily looked uncertain, glancing between Mira and Cassius with obvious confusion. "I don't understand. Why is everyone so tense?" "Because," Ravencrest said gently, "Lord Cassius has been living with a lie for 3 centuries. And you, my dear, are going to help him see the truth." He moved to the display case and removed an ornate dagger, its blade gleaming silver in the firelight. This belonged to Cassius's father. It was found in the ruins of their castle, covered in blood. "Touch it, child. Tell us what you see." "Lily, don't," Mira said quickly. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do." "But I want to help," Lily said, her green eyes wide with innocent concern. "If Lord Cassius has been sad for so long and I can help him understand what happened. Lily, please, just come with me. We can leave right now, go somewhere safe." "She can't leave," Ravencrest said smoothly. "Not until she's fulfilled her purpose. You see, Miss Blackwood, your sister isn't just here as my guest. She's here as collateral." "Collateral for what?" "For Lord Cassius's cooperation. You see, I have a proposition for him. A choice, if you will." "What kind of choice?" Cassius asked, his voice tight with controlled fury. "Simple. You can accept the truth about your family, acknowledge that their deaths were necessary and justified, and swear an oath of loyalty to the coalition that has maintained order in vampire society for 3 centuries. In exchange, I'll return your memories of that night. All of them, including the ones that will show you exactly why your family had to die. And if I refuse, then young Lily remains here, using her gift to unlock the secrets contained in your family's artifacts. Secrets that could be quite dangerous in the wrong hands. You're threatening a child. I'm offering you a choice. The truth you've sought for 3 centuries in exchange for your acceptance of that truth and your loyalty to those who revealed it. And Lily will be returned to her sister, unharmed, and with a generous payment for her services. She'll be free to live whatever life she chooses, with the knowledge that she helped bring closure to a centuries-old tragedy." Mira felt sick. "You're using her. You're using a 12-year-old girl to manipulate him. I'm offering both of you exactly what you came here seeking. Lord Cassius gets his answers, you get your sister back, and everyone leaves here satisfied. Except for the part where you're asking him to betray everything he's believed for 3 centuries. I'm asking him to accept reality. Sometimes the people we love aren't who we think they are. Sometimes the causes we believe in aren't as noble as we imagine. Sometimes the truth is more complicated than the stories we tell ourselves." Cassius was staring at the dagger in Ravencrest's hand, his expression cycling through emotions too complex to name. "If I agree to this, if I let Lily read the objects and accept whatever truth they reveal, you'll let them both go free? You have my word. The word of a man who admits to murdering my family. The word of a man who helped prevent a war that would have destroyed everything you claim to care about. Cassius, Mira said quietly, you don't have to do this. We can find another way. Can we? He has your sister, Mira. He has the answers I've been seeking. And he has us trapped in his castle with no way out. There's always another way. Not this time. Cassius looked at her, and she saw the pain in his silver eyes, the weight of 3 centuries of grief and uncertainty. I need to know the truth, Mira. Whatever it costs, whatever it reveals, I need to know what really happened to my family. Even if that truth destroys everything you've believed about them, even then. And if the truth is that they deserve to die, if Ravencrest is telling the truth about their plans, then I'll have to live with that knowledge. But at least I'll finally know. Mira wanted to argue, wanted to find some way to save both Lily and Cassius from this impossible choice. But she could see the determination in his eyes, the desperate need for closure that had driven him for 3 centuries. All right, she said finally, but I have conditions. You're hardly in a position to make demands, Ravencrest pointed out. Aren't I? You need Cassius's cooperation, not just his compliance. And you need Lily to be willing to use her gift. Neither of those things will happen if you don't agree to my terms. What terms? First, Lily and I stay together throughout this process. No separating us. No using one of us to control the other. Agreed. Second, if the truth you reveal is as damning as you claim, you provide proof beyond just the visions. Documents, witnesses, something that corroborates what Lily sees. Also agreed. And third, regardless of what we discover, regardless of what oaths you want Cassius to swear, Lily and I leave here free and unharmed. No conditions, no strings attached, no future obligations. That depends entirely on Lord Cassius's cooperation. No, it doesn't. That's non-negotiable. Whatever happens between you and him, my sister and I walk away from this. Ravencrest studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. You have my word that you and your sister will leave here unharmed, regardless of the outcome of our negotiations. Then we have a deal. Excellent. Ravencrest turned to Lily, offering her the dagger with a gentle smile. Now then, my dear, shall we begin? Lily looked to Mira, who nodded encouragingly despite her fears. Whatever they were about to learn, whatever truth was about to be revealed, they would face it together. All right, Lily said, reaching for the dagger with trembling fingers. I'll try to help. The moment her skin made contact with the ancient blade, her eyes rolled back and she gasped, her small body going rigid as visions flooded her mind. When she spoke, her voice was distant, dreamy, as if she were narrating events happening far away. I see. A man with dark hair, standing in a great hall. He's angry, shouting at people in fine clothes. He's saying that humans are cattle, that they exist only to serve vampire kind. He wants to make them slaves, to take away their freedom, their ability to think for themselves. Cassius went pale. That can't be right. There's a woman with him, Lily continued, her voice growing stronger as the vision became clearer. Beautiful, with long dark hair. She's holding a book, reading from it. The words are changing people, making them different, making them forget who they are, what they believe. Memory magic, Ravencrest said quietly. Your mother was researching ways to rewrite human consciousness, to make them more compliant, more willing to serve. And there's a girl, Lily said, her voice now filled with wonder. Young, with eyes that see everything. She's looking at the people in the room and she knows. She knows which ones are lying, which ones are afraid, which ones will betray the cause if given the chance. Lydia, Cassius whispered. My sister. She's beautiful, Lily said with a smile. And she's so sure of herself, so certain that what they're doing is right. She believes that humans are too weak to govern themselves, that vampires have a duty to guide them, to control them for their own good. No, Cassius said, but his voice lacked conviction. She wouldn't have believed that. She was kind, compassionate. She was young, Ravencrest said gently. Young and idealistic and completely devoted to her family's vision of the future. She truly believed that vampire rule would be better for humanity than human freedom. I see the night, Lily continued, her voice growing darker. The night when everything changed. There are people coming, people who don't agree with the plan. They're arguing, fighting. The man with dark hair, your father, he's drawing a sword. He's saying that anyone who opposes them is a traitor to their own kind. They fought back, Cassius said, understanding beginning to dawn in his eyes. The coalition fought back because my family was trying to force their vision on the world. Your father killed Lord Blackwood's son that night, Ravencrest said. Cut him down in cold blood for daring to question the morality of enslaving an entire species. That's when we knew there was no reasoning with them, no compromise to be found. I see blood, Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face. So much blood. People dying, fighting, screaming. And in the middle of it all, a young man with silver eyes trying to protect someone he loves. Marcus, Cassius breathed. I was trying to protect Marcus. But you couldn't, Lily said sadly. No one could protect anyone that night. It was too late for protection, too late for mercy. It was only about survival. Show him the rest, Ravencrest said gently. Show him what happened after the fighting stopped. I see the young man with silver eyes kneeling in the ruins. He's holding a woman's body, crying, begging her to wake up. But she's gone, and he knows it. He knows they're all gone. Lydia, Cassius said, his voice breaking. I was holding Lydia. And then there are people standing over him, the survivors of the battle. They're talking about what to do with him, whether to kill him or let him live. One of them, a man with silver hair, he's arguing for mercy. That was me, Ravencrest said. I convinced them that you were as much a victim as anyone else, that you had been manipulated by your family's extremist beliefs. I see them, doing something to his mind, taking away his memories, changing what he remembers, making him forget the truth about his family, about what they were planning, about why they had to be stopped. We gave you a gift, Ravencrest said, the gift of innocence, the ability to remember your family as noble and good, rather than as the extremists they truly were. Lily released the dagger suddenly, gasping as she returned to the present. She looked around the room with wide, frightened eyes, as if seeing everyone clearly for the first time. Is it true? She asked in a small voice. Did his family really want to hurt people? They wanted to help people, Ravencrest said gently, but they were going about it in the wrong way. Sometimes when we love someone very much, we think we know what's best for them even when they disagree. But that's not right, Lily said with the simple wisdom of childhood. People should get to choose for themselves, even if they make mistakes. Yes, Mira said, pulling her sister into a protective embrace. They should. Cassius had sunk into his chair, his face buried in his hands. When he finally looked up, his silver eyes were filled with a pain so profound it was almost unbearable to witness. It's true, he said quietly. All of it. I can feel the memories returning now, like a dam breaking in my mind. My family, my beloved family, they were monsters. They were people who lost their way, Ravencrest corrected. People who let their love for their own kind blind them to the rights of others. And I would have followed them. If I had remembered, if I had known their true plans, I would have tried to complete their work. Which is why we took those memories away. We gave you the chance to become someone better than what your family's legacy would have made you. By lying to me for 3 centuries. By protecting you from a truth that would have destroyed you. Cassius was quiet for a long moment, processing everything he had learned. Finally, he looked up at Ravencrest with something that might have been gratitude. What happens now? He asked. Now you have a choice. You can rage against us for what we did, spend the rest of your existence seeking revenge for a crime that was actually an act of mercy. Or you can accept that sometimes the people we love aren't who we think they are, and that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is prevent them from causing harm. And if I choose acceptance, then you join us. You help us maintain the balance that has kept both our species safe for 3 centuries. You use your power and influence to ensure that the mistakes of the past are never repeated. And if I choose revenge, then you become exactly what your family was, someone so consumed by their own vision of justice that they lose sight of what's truly right. Mira watched Cassius wrestle with this impossible choice, her heart breaking for the pain he was experiencing. Everything he had believed about himself, about his family, about his purpose in life, all of it had been revealed as a lie. Cassius, she said softly, whatever you decide, I'll support you. But remember what you told me about becoming something better than what we were made to be. This is your chance to do that. Is it? Or is this just another form of manipulation? Another way of controlling me. I don't know, Mira admitted, but I know that you're not your family. I know that you're capable of choosing compassion over vengeance, understanding over hatred. I've seen who you really are, and that person is worth fighting for. Even knowing what my family was, even knowing that I carry their blood, their legacy, especially knowing that, because you've already proven that you're different from them. You made a deal to save my sister instead of simply taking what you wanted. You've shown kindness to humans when you could have shown cruelty. You've chosen love over isolation, hope over despair. Love, Cassius repeated as if the word were foreign to him. Yes, love. For justice, for truth, for the possibility of a better future. And if you're willing to risk it, love for me, you would stay with me. Even knowing what I come from, I would stay with you because of who you've chosen to become, not because of who your family was. Cassius looked at her for a long moment, then turned to Ravencrest. I need time to think. This is too much to process all at once. Of course. But Cassius, understand that some choices can't be delayed indefinitely. The Coalition needs to know where you stand, what role you'll play in the future we're building. And if I can't give you an answer, if I need more time to understand what this all means, then we'll wait, within reason. But the offer won't remain open forever. How long? Until the next full moon, 3 weeks from tonight. That should give you sufficient time to come to terms with what you've learned. And Mira and Lily are free to go, as promised. Though I hope they'll consider staying as our guests until you've made your decision. No, Mira said firmly. Lily and I are leaving. Tonight. We've fulfilled our part of the bargain and we're not staying here to be used as leverage. As you wish. Though I hope you'll reconsider. It would be unfortunate if Lord Cassius were to make his decision without the counsel of someone he trusts. He'll make the right decision, Mira said with more confidence than she felt. With or without my counsel. We'll see. As they prepared to leave Ravencrest Castle, Mira found herself torn between relief at having Lily back and worry about leaving Cassius to face this crisis alone. But she knew that staying would only complicate things further, would make it harder for him to think clearly about what he'd learned. Are you sure about this? Cassius asked as their carriage was prepared. You could stay. Help me work through all of this. You need time to process what you've learned without worrying about how your decisions will affect me and Lily. You need to figure out who you want to be now that you know the truth about your past. And what if I decide that Ravencrest is right? What if I choose to join his coalition? Then you'll be making that choice for the right reasons, not because you were manipulated or coerced. And what if I choose revenge? What if I can't let go of 3 centuries of grief and anger? Then I'll try to talk you out of it, but Cassius, I don't think that's who you are anymore. I think you've grown beyond the need for vengeance. You have more faith in me than I have in myself. That's what love is, believing in someone even when they can't believe in themselves. Love, he said again as if testing the word. I'm not sure I remember how to love someone without losing them. Then we'll figure it out together. When you're ready, when you've made your choice, we'll figure out what comes next. And if my choice disappoints you, then we'll deal with that too. But Cassius, I don't think you're capable of disappointing me. Not when it comes to the things that really matter. As their carriage rolled away from Ravencrest Castle, Mira held Lily close and tried not to look back at the man standing alone in the courtyard. Whatever choice Cassius made in the coming weeks, whatever path he chose to follow, she would be waiting for him. Because sometimes love meant having faith in someone even when they couldn't have faith in themselves. And sometimes the greatest act of love was giving someone the space they needed to become who they were meant to be. Will we see him again? Lily asked quietly. I hope so, Mira replied. I really hope so. He's sad, Lily observed with the simple clarity of childhood. But he's not broken. Not anymore. No, Mira agreed, watching the castle disappear into the highland mist. He's not broken. He's just finding his way. Like we all are. Like we all are. And as their carriage carried them toward an uncertain future, Mira found herself hoping that when Cassius finally found his way, it would lead him back to them. Epilogue. 3 weeks later. The full moon hung heavy over the Scottish Highlands as Cassius Nightfall stood once again in the courtyard of Ravencrest Castle. But this time, he was not alone. Mira and Lily flanked him, their presence a reminder of what he had chosen to fight for. You came back, Ravencrest said, emerging from the castle with obvious satisfaction. I wasn't certain you would. I gave you my word that I would have an answer by tonight, Cassius replied. I'm here to deliver it. And your companions are here because they're part of my answer. How intriguing. Please, proceed. Cassius stepped forward, his silver eyes blazing with newfound purpose. You were right about my family. They were planning something monstrous, something that would have enslaved an entire species, and you were right to stop them. I'm pleased you've come to understand. But, Cassius continued, his voice cutting through Ravencrest's words like a blade, you were wrong about me. You were wrong to think that knowing the truth would make me grateful for 3 centuries of lies. You were wrong to think that I would simply accept your version of justice and fall in line with your coalition. Cassius, I reject your offer. I reject your coalition. And I reject the idea that the ends justify the means, no matter how noble those ends might be. Then you choose revenge? After everything you've learned? I choose something better than revenge. I choose to build something new. Something that doesn't require lies or manipulation or the sacrifice of innocence to maintain order. That's naive idealism. Maybe, but it's my idealism, chosen freely rather than imposed by others. And I'm not alone in it. You think these humans will stand with you against the combined power of vampire nobility? I think these humans represent something you've forgotten. The possibility of cooperation instead of domination, partnership instead of control. And when your noble experiment fails, when the reality of vampire nature reasserts itself, then we'll adapt. We'll learn. We'll find another way. Cassius reached out and took Mira's hand. But we won't give up on the idea that people, human or vampire, deserve the right to choose their own destiny. You're making a mistake, Cassius. A mistake that will cost you everything. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. And for the first time in 3 centuries, I'm making it with my eyes wide open. As they walked away from Ravencrest Castle for the final time, Mira squeezed Cassius's hand and smiled up at him. No regrets? She asked. None, he replied. For the first time in my very long life, I'm exactly where I want to be. Even if it means starting over, building something new from nothing. Especially then, because this time I'm not building it alone. No, Mira agreed, looking at Lily, who was walking beside them with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen the worst of the world and chosen to believe in its capacity for good. This time, you're not alone at all. And as they walked into the Highland night, 3 unlikely allies united by love and hope and the radical belief that the future could be better than the past, Cassius Nightfall finally understood what his sister Lydia had tried to tell him all those centuries ago. Sometimes the greatest courage was not in fighting for what you believed, but in being willing to change what you believed when you discovered it was wrong. Sometimes the greatest strength was not in standing alone, but in choosing to stand with others. And sometimes the greatest victory was not in defeating your enemies, but in refusing to become what they expected you to be. The future stretched before them, uncertain but full of possibility. And for the first time in 3 centuries, that was enough. What an absolutely breathtaking journey from desperate thief to unlikely family. I'm still emotional from watching Mira's fierce determination to save her sister awaken something in Cassius that he thought was lost forever. The capacity to choose love over vengeance, hope over despair, and that revelation about his family, the way everything he believed about his past was turned upside down, forcing him to confront the possibility that the people we love aren't always who we think they are. That was masterful storytelling. What did you think of Lily's gift and how it was used to uncover the truth? Did the twist about Cassius's family feel earned, or was it too shocking? If you loved this incredible tale of family bonds, moral complexity, and the courage to choose redemption over revenge, please hit that subscribe button. I have so many more amazing stories waiting for you. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Cassius made the right choice in rejecting Ravencrest's offer? Or should he have joined the coalition for the greater good? And here's something that's been haunting me. Was Mira's faith in Cassius naive? Or was she right to believe he could choose to be better than his family's legacy? Next week, I'm bringing you another heart-stopping supernatural romance. Cursed princess can only be saved by true love's kiss. The assassin sent to kill her falls in love instead. Trust me, you won't want to miss that emotional masterpiece.